Stuff.
Just does the situation. So you have what you want to say so. Yeah. It's sunglasses.
Supposed to be a friend here, but
We're not going to figure out there's a way to do it. You might know the WordPress jokes.
Oh gosh, I remember talking about that. About that wrestling.
Yeah. Oh.
What's that? Oh, do you have one of those little cards? There's little black cards like on the bar and everything. That have a Wi-Fi password.
I got it.
There's one right here, actually.
All right, we'll get started. Welcome. Hello. Welcome to WordPress DC. Who here is at WordPress DC for the very first time? Awesome, thank you so much. This community is built by people like you, so thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, even if it's the dumbest, illiterate, you have no idea what you're doing question, be brave, as you might have noticed on our wall, and ask one of the organizers, or even if they kind of look like they're talking about, feel free to ask questions. We're all here to help each other. Welcome to Chief. This is our permanent sponsor. Every third Tuesday, we meet here at 6:30, and we get started promptly at 7-ish every night. Let's see. Let's do some quick introductions. If you just want to go around the room, and everybody can talk for like 5 to 10 minutes about that. No. Okay. What we will do though for 10 minutes while David gets sets up is just introduce yourself to the person to left and right behind you, whatever. So you can make a friend or a mortal enemy, and yeah, we'll be back in 10 minutes.
Scott.
how are you? Wait, Scott?
Yeah, I'm Scott.
Oh, man.
Are you ready?
Yes.
So we'll bring it back in. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so 2 housekeeping things real quick. Actually 3, maybe 4. One is if you didn't get any pizza, they put in an order for some more, so that should be arriving later on. Maybe between speakers, we'll take a break depending on the pizza situation.
Thanks, Scott.
If you're, yeah, I always feel kind of sheepish. Like I happen to work at Chief, but let's give Chief a round of applause for hosting a pizza. If you're going to South by Southwest or know someone who is, Chief actually throws a party there, and Scott would be very interested to know if you're heading down there, and that's in like 2 weeks' time, right? So, yeah, talk to Scott. The bathrooms are right by the elevators, as we discussed before. Last and most important thing, if you find yourself in the back talking, it echoes, and we can hear everything, and then I blog and tweet about it. So just a forewarning there. I might come back and pester you too and ask you to move to another room or something. Cool, thank you so much. And I think that's all the housekeeping stuff for now. Okay, all right, Leland, one of the other co-organizers, is going to introduce our speaker.
Hey everyone, I'm Leland. So first up we have David A. Kennedy. He is on the WordPress.com theme team, and his official job title is Theminator. So without further ado. Oh.
Test. Hey everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to a talk called Themes Are for Users. Talk all about user experience in WordPress themes. As no one said, I'm David Kennedy. I work with themes on WordPress.com, and I have the lovely job of trying to make sure they're the best they can be for every user on WordPress.com, and I love it. Let's start off talking about users. One of the things I love about themes is that they're so central to the WordPress experience, right? When you first install WordPress, one of the first things you do is go and activate a new theme. And if you have a theme that you like and you're ready to roll with, you start to customize it. You start to play with it. You start to figure out, how can I make this thing look exactly like I want it, so I can put my best foot out in the world on my website. And unfortunately, despite themes being so central to the WordPress experience, they're one of the weakest. At WordPress.com, all of our data and all of our interactions with users say that one of the hardest things users have to do when it comes to WordPress, whether it be WordPress.org, whether it be WordPress.com, whether it be a theme you get out of the WordPress.org directory, or a theme that you custom build for a client, themes are hard. And that's primarily because we don't start with people a lot of times when we start with themes. So how do we do that? Well, let's meet a user, a real person, Michelle. So Michelle is an example of a user persona. And user personas are fictional characters, but they're basically combinations of user types that might use your site or your app or whatever the heck it is you're building with WordPress. And Michelle's a pretty typical WordPress user. She needs a website for handmade purses and handbag accessories. She really wants to use her site to showcase her creativity. And her big plan is to photo blog about her creative process, how she builds those accessories. And her big goal out of the whole thing is to really build a community of followers, so potentially down the road, they can turn into her customers. So Michelle does what all of us have done, I think, at some point. She starts shopping around for WordPress themes. Maybe she visits the WordPress.org theme directory. Maybe she goes to her favorite search engine and starts searching around. And she inevitably lands on what we've all landed on before, and that's a theme demo. And this demo she sees looks amazing. It's like perfect. And she thinks, that is what I want. And so she goes off that, and she downloads that theme, and she starts to dive in. But here's where the problems begin. She follows standard WordPress instructions to set up a static page for her home page because she wants to have a nice landing page in addition to her blog. And she selects a special page template to set up that front page. She activates it just like the instructions say. She visits the front end of her site, and all she sees is a blank page. And why is that? Because a lot of themes build custom templates like that with all these different data types coming in from different directions. You might have widgets on that page, you might have data coming in from post types, you might have data coming in from separate pages. And unfortunately for Michelle, if she hasn't read the documentation line by line, which whoever really does that, she has no idea. And she's greeted with a blank page and she doesn't know where to go. But she's excited about photo blank, so undaunted, she moves on. And she knows that a lot of themes come with theme options. She's read a little bit about the customizer, and she goes, I'm gonna go there. I bet that's how I fix this problem. And so she clicks customize under the appearance menu, and she gets hit with a wall of theme options. And she's not sure where to start. It's completely overwhelming. But she clicks around a little bit and saves her changes and refreshes that front end of the site. And unfortunately, not much has changed. And this is really the reality for a lot of people who use WordPress. A lot of people who use WordPress leave themes behind, themes that they thought they would love, because those themes are really hard to use. So how do we solve this? Well, actually, and Michelle's not alone. So these are quotes from real people who use WordPress.com and bought a premium theme and then decided they didn't like it, and so they returned it. So this first one. So I thought I could make my page look professional on my own. No way, blankety blank. This is for the technologically savvy, I suppose. So this user was so dissatisfied, they used profanity. This user sums up the last user's experience in only 5 words. Too hard to use, disappointing. And this one is perhaps the one that makes me most sad. Lovely theme, but I just don't have the time and patience to learn. And what that tells me is they actually took the time and had a little bit of patience and gave it a shot. And it was hard, and it was horrible, and they gave up. So the reason this happens is because we, people, are built to resist complicated. We don't do it very well. And there's a couple main reasons for this. The first is that there's a part of your brain that controls task manager and emotions. And it's basically that part of your brain that sort of controls the balance between information overload. And when you're doing a complicated task with a lot of steps, for example, perhaps setting up a complicated WordPress theme, the more information gets thrown at you, the better chance you have of hitting that information overload. And that part of your brain can actually shut down. There's science to this. It can shut down, and then you're more prone to make mistakes, to forget things, and thus the task that you're trying to do, in Michelle's case, set up a WordPress theme, becomes that much harder. The second part of this comes to choices, and it relates to that mountain of options that we talked about on the theme options page with Michelle's theme. There's a psychologist named Barry Schwartz, and he has a great TED Talk online called The Paradox of Choice. And in this talk, he sets out 2 main points. The first one is all about the amount of choices that you have when picking something. Imagine this, you're walking through a grocery store and you want to buy some yogurt. So you head to the dairy section and you're greeted by that wall of yogurt. You've got all different kinds of flavors, from plain to fruit on the bottom to Greek, and it's just completely overwhelming. And what Dr. Schwartz says is that when confronted with a ton of options, a lot of times what happens with people is that it becomes really, really hard to choose at all. And so for Michelle, and for someone faced with a lot of options in a theme or a difficult setup, it's really hard to handle. The second point he makes is that even if you get over that hump, you make that choice, your expectations for that choice you make become that much higher because you spent the time and you waded through all those options, all those different flavors of yogurt, or all those that time you spent clicking all those options and setting up your theme. Your expectations then become so much higher that if they don't meet them, then it's much easier for you to blame yourself, or it's just much easier for you to give up altogether. And another part of this relates to lists. In her book, 100 Things Every Designer Should Know About People, Susan Swasha basically lays out that people focus better when they focus on what's left instead of what they've done. And so what that translates to is that if you have a shorter amount of steps, it's going to be easier for a person to stay focused, to keep on task, and to potentially get through to the end goal. And so, again, as it relates to Michelle and setting up her team, the less things she has to do to get from point A to point B, the better off she will be. And really, the last part of this is that good user experience equates to good profit. And I think we all would like a little more money in our pockets, right? No matter what we're doing with themes. There's a good example of this is a hotel chain here in the States, La Quinta Inn. They gathered a bunch of data, ran some surveys, and they did all this sort of before they launched a bunch of user experience improvements to their website. And what they found after they launched those improvements is that they saw an 83% increase in their bottom line when they looked at before and after. And they didn't stop there. They did a competitive analysis of what they could with their rivals in the same field, tried to gather the same data, and during that same time period, their rivals only saw a 33% increase in the bottom lines. So good user experience really does equate to better profits. And so how do we actually make this happen in our daily processes? It's all about process. I think your typical process when it comes to theming, whether it's theming for a public theme that you're going to make available to download, a theme you're going to sell, a theme you're going to give to a client, a lot of times we have this idea and we sort of run with it and we design it out and we build it and then we launch it and we're like, woo, we're done. But it's not really that simple. A better process is one that embraces iteration. And I like this process. I like the discovery phase, a phase all about research. The build phase, a phase where it includes things like sketching, wireframes, maybe prototyping, actually building out the design. And then you have evaluation, where you're looking at perhaps some of the stats, data that you collected during the discovery phase, and you're measuring it against that. Did I succeed where I wanted to? Is everything checking out like I thought it would? So what do each of these steps kind of look like? What are some concrete examples? First step is the discovery phase. And one good example here is you can look at analytics. So let's say you're a theme shop and you're selling themes. And you notice that your users are searching on your site for a photography theme. And you're like, I don't have a photography theme. Well, that's perhaps a good indication that maybe you can make them, right? And your analytics will tell you that. Another way is to talk to your other staff, particularly your support staff. Support staff are the ones that really know the pain points for your users. WordPress.com, we do a week-long support rotation every year, once a year. Everybody does it. And I did mine recently, and I had to walk the person through explaining the difference between posts pages and why there even was an option for a post in a page. And there's no quicker way to learn how difficult something is than explaining it to someone else. And a third thing that you can do is to actually talk to your users. They're the ones out there. They're the ones interested in your products, interested in your themes, and want to use them. And they will provide the best insight. And with that insight, you can create user personas, like the one we saw at the beginning of the talk with Michelle, and it will help you make more informed decisions during the theming process. So step 2 is the build phase. And this is kind of where the fun begins, right? So whenever I'm working on a theme, first thing I do is to start with paper. I'm a big fan of like analog tools that early on in the process. So I will just sketch out. I won't even worry about anything else, like how pretty it is, anything like that. I just want to get it on paper. And of course, there's other options here too. There's all kinds of tools that you can use for this if you're wanting the digital side of this. The tool doesn't matter so much as the output it gives you and how that informs your creative process. And the next step I like to do is wireframe. The tool I like to use for that is Automattic. And that's where I kind of take my sketches and try to make them a teensy bit more high fidelity, a teensy bit more like they might actually look like a website. And again, there's other programs for this. So use whatever fits your needs. And the third thing I really like to do, especially if I'm building out a new type of interface that I've never built out before, or some kind of a new pattern that I have in a theme, I like to prototype. I love CodePen for this. CodePen is an online playground for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and there are others as well. But it's great because you can very quickly get a page up that has an interaction going. You can just do it with vanilla HTML, CSS. You don't have to worry about WordPress templating or anything like that. And you start to test that, play around with it, put it in front of your coworkers, put it in front of your users, and you'll see if the ideas that you've sketched out actually make sense, and you put it into real code and real design. So the third phase here is evaluation. So repeating the tests that you did in the beginning. To go back to that example I used with your analytics and the photography theme. If you launch a photography theme, maybe you're going back and going, am I seeing conversions? Am I seeing at least a quarter of the people searching for the photography theme, are they converting? Are they actually purchasing? That's how you can sort of determine whether your experiments succeed or fail. And I really think that failing is good. I'll actually talk a little bit about failure later. So what does this mean for WordPress? Themes become more focused. They become less about, hey, I can do all these things, and more about, I can do this one thing, and I can do it really well, and I can leave users happy. Theme options are just that. They're optional. When I activate a theme, I don't necessarily have to activate all the options to get the theme to look really, really good. Theme options actually start to enhance a theme's purpose. They add to it instead of becoming a crutch that needs to be addressed before you can even start writing content. And your documentation becomes easier to write and maintain because your themes are just easier to use. And my favorite part is that your documentation becomes not required reading. Because we know from watching hundreds upon hundreds of themes on WordPress.com, very few folks read the documentation. And also, even when you're in a chat with a user and you're trying to help them with a question, sometimes they don't even read the chat that you're telling them. So this stuff is hard for people. It's hard to take in. So you gotta try to make it as simple as you can. Screenshots and demos set realistic expectations, right? So we don't have a screenshot with like the most complex template that you have in your theme that's perfectly built out that you spent like an hour on. That would take like a normal WordPress user 3 hours to build. Maybe you just have a screenshot of what the theme looks like out of the box, and you're setting better expectations, even if they're not the best thing that can be used, the best way that thing can be used. So, in relation to all this, I mentioned failure earlier. Last week, the Automattic theme team, we launched a new project called Components. It's a toolbox for theming. We're probably most well known for Underscores, which is a starter theme for WordPress. We've maintained it for a number of years. It's the same theme that we use to build every theme that goes on WordPress.com. So this is kind of our next shot at that. Like, what does this look like? And we have a post about this on themeshaper.com, which is our team blog. But basically, how we see components is that when you go to the website, components.underscores.me, you can generate a WordPress theme based on a type. So say business, or magazine, or modern blog. So we have like 6 different types that you can use. And the way we see this evolving in the future is that we'll have one code base, and that code base will be, say, like and underscores. And from that code base, all the different types are generated. And our idea is to kind of take this and run with it and allow config files. So users, you all who build themes, can make different types. And we're going to be taking components and sort of breaking up what makes a WordPress theme, and breaking it up into small chunks. So like, you'll have different examples of navigation, different examples of footers. And with the generator, we'll be able to kind of, I want this one, I want that one, I want that one, I want to make a theme, I want to make a specific type. And then you can kind of generate your theme type based on the components that you see. That is in the future. It's not like that now. But check it out, components.underscores.me. So what does better user experience in theming mean for themes? It means that before you theme, research and establish your focus. While you theme, build in chunks. Test everything as you go. Experiment and revise. Don't be afraid to learn from your own mistakes. And after you theme, after really anything you do, ask yourself, what did I learn from this? How can I do this better next time? The favorite thing that happens to me every day on the internet is when I click a link and I land on someone's personal website. And obviously, it's even better if that personal website's made of WordPress. And that's the beauty of WordPress themes. I think they can open up an entirely new world to the people who use them, and they can reveal something really unique about that person to the rest of the world. And there needs to be more of that. And that doesn't happen unless we're all building themes that just work. Thank you. Time for questions? Or?
Yeah, let's do questions now.
Okay,
I think that's a better format overall. Any questions for David?
Sure. So you mentioned like use cases, coming up with stories, and you mentioned coming up with use cases and stories, and you mentioned metrics as well. And the one example you used was analytics. Are there any other further metrics that you could address that might help this process along? Or
Sure. We're actually working on this a little bit on WordPress.com. We're thinking about, like, I'm going to relate this to themes. We're thinking about themes as, like, theme health, right? So there's lots of different things that make up theme health. And this is specific to WordPress.com, but maybe it'll spark some ideas. So on WordPress.com, we can look at different data points. So obviously we have analytics. We have, with premium themes, we have how many support threads are coming. How many times has this theme been returned, if it's a premium theme? How many times has it been downloaded? How long what's the average length this theme has been active on WordPress.com? So there's different data points that you could then like sort of, depending on what you're after, you could sort of match those data points up and maybe create an overall type of health meter.
Well, I meant more in regards to like when you're a DIY in your own thing.
Okay. That's where like I would really embrace like this process that I talked about here.
Sure.
And prototyping, like do things kind of quick and dirty. And if you have I assume like if you're working with a client, you probably have a main contact at that place. Maybe you can put it in front of them before you show it to the rest of the group. Small steps like that, where you're getting feedback early and often throughout the process.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No questions.
There it goes. Yeah. We talked a little bit about in a previous slide about digging into users' pain points. So I wonder if you could share sort of a little more about that, because I find that in my experience you have users who maybe come from, maybe they're not technical or comfortable with computers, maybe they come from another CMS where there's something the same. So just talk about some ways to sort of dig into that and sort of come up with ways to address those pain points.
The big one is user testing. We use usertesting.com, and we just started to do this more with themes. We had done it a lot in the past with different dashboards and backends on WordPress.com, but didn't do it really specifically with themes. And basically what that is like you're basically giving a user a specific set of tasks. And you're saying, activate this theme and set up the front page and do a post. And that'll watching user testing is basically like being tortured. It's horrible. It is like, I can usually only watch like 10 minutes of user tests at a time, and then I have to like get up and walk away and like tell myself I'm good enough to build teams and then come back. But that's a very quick way that you can sort of discover those pain points. Just to give you some basic examples from what we see, setting up the front page is huge. It's really difficult. Theme options are really difficult. One thing we see all the time is people, they want to like display excerpts on their blog archive. And so they go to the back end and they see that checkbox that says, use excerpts or whatever it says. But that's for your RSS feed instead of like, so it's little things like that. And that's more WordPress specific than say theme specific. But we see things like that all the time.
With the push for REST APIs and React JS, how long before we maybe 2017 completely done in React as opposed to?
Good question. I guess that's really up to the community. I don't think we'll see it until, at least probably until the REST API, like the full REST API lands in Core, right? Because that's kind of a requirement. And I think we'll have to see different themers experimenting with like the best, trying to figure out the best practices in JavaScript theme with WordPress, because that's unproven territory where it's new for everyone. I would say like if you want to make waves, the quickest thing you can do is start experimenting with that. If you are interested in seeing that come to Core, start hanging out in the Core Themes channel on Slack. Start coming to some of the Core meetings. Start commenting on some of the tickets and track. And really the quickest way to get a JavaScript powered theme as a core theme, build one. Build the most epically beautiful, well-designed JavaScript-powered theme, and if it's good enough, it'll go up to core. I mean, that's how a lot of themes, core themes, end up. Like, I think almost every core theme that's been done in WordPress has been a theme that's been previously designed that, you know, was looked at and like, that's really nice. That's a default theme. Let's make that happen. So build one.
Hopefully this isn't the antithesis of using JavaScript for everything, but how does Core and how does your job fit into making sure that more and more themes are ADA compliant or are actually accessible?
Good question. So I didn't even actually mention this, but I am on the WordPress Accessibility Team, and I test. There's an option if you submit a theme to WordPress.org and have it be accessible ready, which is a sort of a way to take a few extra steps to make your theme as accessible as possible. And so, let's see. There's a couple things of that. One is just recently, just this week, the WordPress Accessibility Team wrote some accessibility requirements that are now approved and in the core handbook. And basically what these requirements say is that every new piece of code that goes into WordPress has to meet WCAG requirements. And so, like, the accessibility team is taking as many steps as they can to sort of bring accessibility to the top of everybody's mind. And it's actually a pretty easy job because the community on the whole has really embraced it, and it's actually pretty easy. And we've had a lot of like really awesome accessibility, especially over the last 5 releases. Well, I think to go back to your question about JavaScript, I think it's going to be harder, and we're going to make mistakes because, as I mentioned before, like that's unproven territory. But I think that it's, you know, accessibility is on everybody's mind in the WordPress community, and everybody's, you know, wanting to attack it in a responsible manner. So I think that we'll slowly get there. Any other questions?
Once. One last round of applause, David.
Let's take a 5-minute break while someone gets set up, and at 45 we'll get started. I think there's more pizza here now, hopefully, because I just said that. There's still some left, I just saw it. And grab another drink, bathroom, and be back here. We'll get started at 45. Thank you.
So years ago they had something already 7 plus or minus 4. Like menu options or and after it gets above the 7, above the 9, it's like you can't even. It's just, and so I think that's why a lot of things used to be like 7 at each level, and then start diving down.
Hola con Junti. Sí.
Ese trabajo sí es.
Pero bueno, pasamos yo aviso una vez armando trabajo en el vídeo. Cada día me tuve casa.
2-minute drill. If you start taking your seats, so let's start at 45. Thank you.
Una vez se metía en una casa y había un balde y lo botaron por accidente. Find out. Pero entonces, en esa época Juan no se había puesto en Word y todavía se metía a las casas también y trabajaba. Y botaron vale que estaba en la casa, estaban con una casa con un paso. Eso es horrible. Y el vale tenía agua que estaba conmigo, el agua, hizo un dolor que cada día estaba muriendo en la vida. Entonces, el día siguiente fueron hasta Calvert, que son 2 horas de pico, al trabajo, y la gente había esa mañana, que hace familias con chlorine, y había quitado la casetera con cloro, muriendo, y esa noche le hizo diciéndole a Juan, cada día otro desgaste, estaba en el vídeo. Ay, Dios mío, casi me muero con mi madre.
All right, settle down. Come on back in if you don't mind. We're going to get started. Promptly at 7:45, exactly like I promised. Not a minute late. Or maybe 1 minute late. Coming in, don't be shy. And just a reminder, I'm writing fictitious stories about what you're talking about in the back, and I'm selling that to the highest bidder. I'm getting like 5 cents a word now, so eager to do that. Thank you. That works. Cool. Leland will introduce our next speaker.
All right, so next up we have Solomon Scott, who is talking about JavaScript parting WordPress. Loving, I don't know, however you interpret it. He's a developer for ID5, which is a company based in Baltimore. And without further ado, Solomon.
All right, can you guys hear me all right? Yeah. Awesome. All right, so my name is Solomon Scott. I am a developer at ID5. I work, now don't go tomatoes at me, but I work with Drupal and WordPress. So I work with both. I also work a lot with JavaScript, Angular, React, some Node. Essentially, I am, I want to say a little bit of a jack of all trades. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit, not just about JavaScript and WordPress, but it's also going to be about JavaScript design patterns, or as I like to call it, sexy JavaScript. As you can see, JavaScript was WordPress. So how many of you have essentially taken the homework Matt Mullenweg gave at WordCamp US and started learning JavaScript? All right, that's awesome. I'll tell you as much JavaScript is a powerful and beautiful language, and it's not scary at all. So don't be afraid to jump in it and just learn it. So JavaScript design patterns, which is sort of the main focus of my talk, it can actually help you learn JavaScript. But the best part about it, you have to learn to write good JavaScript, which is an industry standard. You really need to know how to write it in a way that's going to make sense for not only you, but other developers. So what is a design pattern? Hold on. This is there. So a design pattern is a way of programming that helps create reusable, maintainable, and scalable code. And what does that mean? Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the horrors of spaghetti code, right? Where you have code is all over the place, functions and PHP and or JavaScript, and variables just littered throughout the entire site, and you have no idea where things are. So the design pattern is simply the way to help control that. It's going to help you make your site much more readable. So I can help your project. We can, code it up, and I know exactly where your stuff is. You code it in a way that makes it easily readable. So I guess the main question is, why use one? What's the point of it? I'll show you this. It may not be the most ugliest code ever, but to me, this is disgusting. It's just a bunch of functions, variables, if-else statements, just strewn throughout this the project. And you can see a little bit of office stain going here. Kind of I was watching throughout the snowstorm. But the problem with it, or I guess the benefit of using a design pattern is that it allows other developers to easily hop into your code and pick up and interact with it really easily. I mean, you say, I can hop into your project. Anyone in this room can hop into your project and figure out just where your code is, just where that one function call is that you just can't seem to find when you're doing spaghetti code. Design patterns also help solve proven solutions when it comes to applications and websites. The biggest one I would say is security. If you think about it, if you're doing a WordPress site with a Twitter, a small Twitter application in it, you have to authenticate that Twitter user. Essentially, what you want to do is have an auth key there. You're going to have to store that auth key somewhere in your site or in your code, and you don't want someone just accessing it randomly. If it was this variable here, I could just go into the console and type and just figure out the variable that it is and start calling it. I can do that if I really wanted to and start, using your auth key. But design patterns essentially help solve that security issue and can help make the code a little bit more safe, secure for anyone who might want to use your code maliciously. Oh my gosh, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So another thing about design patterns is they can be used in a lot of other projects. You can have a small library to help you write or to help create cookies in a browser. You can make it. You can do it in a sort of a I'll talk about in a module pattern that'll make it easier for you to put it into any site. You can update it pretty easily. You can manage it really simply, and I'll show you a little bit what it looks like, but it's going to be really, really simple. So let's get into some JavaScript basics or fundamentals before I move on. I want to introduce you to a few concepts before we get to the full module pattern. So declaring a variable, what does it look like? For those of you who have not worked very closely with JavaScript, a variable, and sorry that's a little small, that's pretty big. So a variable essentially is a way of storing information to use later on. And the cool thing about it is the name itself has a big key to what it does. I mean, a variable, it can be changed. And the cool thing about variables too is that they can be used in various ways, or be assigned to things in various ways. So you can have functions, objects, which we'll go over today, as well as a lot of other things. Variables are very dynamic. You also have functions, which are tasks. Now, one thing to know with functions is, so when it comes to like tasks, right? Let's say for example, like washing the dishes, right? Or washing dishes in the sink. Essentially, you want to have one function for each task. That's good JavaScript. You want to have one function that will actually wash the dishes. You want to have one function that will dry the dishes. One function that will put the dishes away. You want to have a function for each of those. That's good JavaScript. A function should have one specific task. So with this function particularly that I have up here, you can see that I've use the same syntax as a variable to actually assign it to a function. And I'm using something called a parameter, in this case, hero. So in that example earlier with a function, or sorry, with washing dishes, a parameter is something that will actually affect the outcome of that task. So if you think about our one function actually wash dishes, you may pass in the brand of dish soap that you want to use. It can be homemade, store-bought, whatever. And essentially that's going to actually affect the outcome of that function. So here we actually have a function that takes in our hero, in this case Batman, and you can say Batman is saved the city. One thing to know, you're going to see a lot of superhero and comic book things here today. I am a huge comic book fan. Just watched Deadpool over the weekend, so I'm really still so fun. Yeah. So let's go over one last thing, which is objects. Now, objects, in my opinion, are one of the most fundamental and amazing things with JavaScript. So objects are essentially variables that can store multitudes of information. So you can have things in here, and don't let this, if you're trying to make it simple as possible, but you can see we have our name, which is a flash, it's power, it's hometown, and we have a function. When it comes to objects, though, one thing you know with objects, functions and variables and objects are actually called two different terms. They mean the same thing. So you may have a function, or it's called a method, and a variable, which is called a property. So they're pretty much the same exact thing, but you can see, so the hero name is actually a property, and the defeat villain is surprisingly enough a function or a method. And when you want to actually call that method or property out, all you have to do is variable name dot property. So you can see I've done hero dot name, hero dot power, and so on and so forth. It's pretty easy, pretty cool in my opinion as far as how to actually get it out. So I want to go over one major design pattern with you guys. Now there are multitudes of design patterns out there. I'm not going to go through all of them because they can be really difficult and really mind-boggling. But that's something once you get more comfortable with JavaScript, I would definitely recommend you go through because they're powerful, especially when it comes to more advanced application websites. So the one I want to go over today is going to be the module pattern. The module pattern is the most widely used design pattern of all. I mean, jQuery uses it. If you ever use Dojo, they use it. Well, I forgot how to pronounce it. Yui or YUI? I don't really know how they call it, whatever the whatever it is. But they actually use the module pattern as well. Now, the best part about it is it's most used for keeping certain pieces of your code independent of other components. So you can have a module pattern for a variety of things across the project. You can have a module just for your newsfeed. You can have a module just for a portfolio aspect of your site. You can write it out so that way each piece of your site has a module associated with it, and it isn't just that piece, just in that aspect of your, just in that piece of code. You can have a huge project, and that's actually an example that we had at I5. We had a project where we had about 50 different JavaScript files going on, doing a variety of things. And when we first got the files, they were all over the place. We had no idea what was in any of them. We found out there were a few things going on throughout. They're affecting the same thing across the site in about 2 or 3 different files. So when we cleaned it up, we used a module pattern and essentially associated each file with one aspect of the site and cleaned it up drastically. So it's a really powerful design pattern, in my opinion. But also the biggest thing about it is that it actually can protect certain aspects of your code. So it supports private data. Now going further, I just mentioned private data. A big thing you need to know about the module pattern is private versus public. So in JavaScript, you have private functions and public functions. Now, as it kind of says, public functions are things that are available to the world, and anyone can see them. You can, in your console, a lot of times in your console, if you start typing in the browser, in the console, you'll actually see a lot of the functions the site uses. That's simply a public function. You can access it from anywhere. Whereas a private function is something that is going to be used just solely by your code. It's only your code can see it. Think about this: a bank transaction. If you're doing a transaction in your code, would you want everyone having your routing number, your account information, your PIN number, your social security number? Do you want anyone having that information? No, I'm sure you don't. And if you do, then good luck in the world. Well, that's the idea behind it. You're going to have a private function, essentially, maybe to do some things where you know, just maintenance code. Maybe you want something just to stringify something, or maybe you want something to go through and actually take your HTML and compile it. Or that can be, you know, anything along those lines. You might not want other aspects of the site to see can be kept in that private function or that private bit of code. So the advantages of the module pattern, essentially, as I said before, I mean, it's clean for developers. I mean, I'll show you. It's really simple to learn. I mean, it looks just like one giant object. And so think about it. If you're in the console, you can type in the name of your object, and you'll see everything associated with that object, or with your pattern or your module. It supports private data. I mean, it's really good for that. And in my opinion, when I've used this pattern, I set it that way. I have one module that does all my helpers. It may do things that essentially other modules might need, and I can sort of export that to my other projects and keep the things that just that one module needs in that one folder, in my one file, keep it private and protected. Where are we? Oh, wait a minute. Actually, yeah, that's right. Sorry. So where does WordPress come in at? There's a big word that I want to use. You might be asking yourself, why does this help my WordPress site? But the biggest word is modernization. You know, I've been using it, the module word, for a while, but it can help keep your code really clean and really compact, and essentially make you a better developer in the long run. I mean, you're going to have, especially in WordPress, even in Drupal, you have a variety of other JavaScript libraries coming into your site. The chances of things conflicting can be very high. You want to make sure that when it comes to things like, maybe you're including underscores, maybe you're including backbone in your site, which is already in WordPress, maybe including Angular, React, any library in particular, you can actually reduce the amount of conflicts that come. I mean, in JavaScript and in the browser, everything gets appended to the browser, everything. So the chances of, say, your function, which it might be called function hello world, just something simple. The chance someone might have that function, I mean, even though hello world is very basic, someone can have the same exact thing in their code. Essentially, if it's the last thing to run, it's going to overwrite what you did so your code won't even run in the first place. It's going to help create some really clean code that will not conflict with anything else in your site. So before I go into anything else, I actually want to show you the module pattern bit right here. So this is something, it's something small and I created, and I'll post it later on. Can anyone see that? It's really small, yeah. If I can zoom in here. All right, better, there we go. So I created a function or a module, and this is something where you don't have to write this down for now as far as how I did it, but I'll have resources later on actually how to create this kind of stuff. But what I've actually done is create a hero module that sets some variables, like I said, public name Spider-Man, his private or secret identity as Peter Parker. And I can just give you a good example of what private versus public looks like. My get hero secret identity function, which just shows his identity, his public name, which just shows his actual name, and then at the bottom where I say that return function, that's actually showing, but that's actually returning certain things to my module that I can use in other places. So the cool thing about this, I can actually pull up my hero here. I can see what it is as an object. I have the identity and the name. And if I call hero.name, wait for my parentheses, I can see Spider-Man. Now, if I wanted to call his secret identity, I can't just do hero.secret identity. I can't access that. It's not a function because it doesn't exist. The actual module doesn't know it exists to the world because it's private. Now, if I want to make that public, I can, and what I did here is I actually revealed his identity. But I can say hero.identity and see Peter Parker. So it's really powerful. I mean, this is just one example. When it comes to building sites and applications, it's a really powerful, robust pattern. But I just have something basic here to keep it very simple. You can actually do some awesome things. I mean, we set ours up so that way. Ours is kind of like an Angular application without being an Angular application. It can actually hold information that's relatable to that particular module and use it whenever rendering the page. You can do some really powerful things with this. So back to this. All right. So I have some resources here, but I mean, these are just stuff that helps you not only learn the module pattern, but it goes into some really cool examples. Like the second one, which is actually about Scotch.io, which is one of my favorite blogs ever, actually goes through a few more different module patterns that everyone should know. And it simplifies it in a way that makes sense. It's like reading Dr. Seuss book, in my opinion. I mean, it's really good. But yeah, like that's essentially with custom design patterns. I like to think, where could my code be? Where could it ever end up? I mean, if I'm not using it, maybe one of my team members might use my code later on. So that's the cool thing about it. You can always have your code to be used anywhere else. I wanted to share with you guys one more thing before I go, which is essentially let's create a better JavaScript world. I mean, let's write great JavaScript. It's not a scary thing, as I said. I mean, it's a really powerful, a really fun and robust language. Once you learn it and use it, it's a great tool in your arsenal. I mean, I can say honestly, it took me, I bought one book and read JavaScript. I read it for about a week. And at that time I was like, my gosh, why haven't I done this before? So yeah, that's about it. Just go out there and write great JavaScript here, everybody.
Cool, thank you very much. Any questions for Solomon?
The slides so that we can get to the resources, are you going to put those up somewhere?
Yes, I'm going to share those to the WordPress Meetup. Yes.
Questions? Questions in here?
Are you familiar with JSON LD?
Everyone done?
JSON LD?
Jason LD, I'm not.
Oh,
Are
okay.
you talking with JSON, like JSON?
Yeah.
You said LE?
LD.
LD. I am not. Brother, no. But it is JSON LD.
Oh, it's what Google's using now instead of, or recommending instead of schema.
Hmm.
But it's based on JavaScript, so I was wondering.
No, I've not heard of that. That's actually really cool. I know there are a variety of things out there, like JSON, especially with REST API out there now with JSON. And if you've ever heard of this one called MongoDB, which is a database that's actually written in JSON, which you can access similar to an API. So, but I've never heard of JSON LD before. That's something I have to look up. Yeah.
I noticed in your pattern that you had declared your functions like sliding into variables. Is there a reason why that's preferable to just declare your function?
In my opinion, so I do that as it's two reasons. One, a little bit of personal preference. To me, it looks a little cleaner. It shows my function name first, so I can sort of see things a little bit easier. And two, as far as actually declaring it, it's just a little bit more robust, in my opinion. One thing to note, and I didn't want to mention this, but so everything in JavaScript is browsing up an object. So when you're creating a variable or a function, they're pretty much all objects, so they have things attached to them. So I thought of the same thing where, all right, if I'm declaring a variable or an object, why not declare a function in the same manner so that they all look similar? But I can actually see that instead of looking for separate functions, I can look at my variable names and see what things are. A little bit cleaner, in my opinion. Well, so.
There's a technical difference. I'm sure you're familiar with You Don't Know JavaScript, the GitHub book. I think variables are declared first at the compile stage, and then function names are assigned second after that. So if you're really getting to the nitty gritty or dealing with a giant library, there's a technical difference that could be a gotcha, something to look out for. But it is largely a preference.
Questions at all? Who writes?
Who writes JavaScript once a week or so? On a more regular basis. Okay. And who's completely new to JavaScript? Hadn't seen any JavaScript before this presentation tonight. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Like I said, like you guys, when it comes to learning JavaScript, I would recommend if you really want to learn it and get really deep into it, a few things. One, I know Zach Gordon has a JavaScript for WordPress master course coming up. That's going to be really awesome. I'm excited for it. And even though I know JavaScript, I really want to look into it and to use it. Another thing I used was I just bought a book. Literally, it's a dictionary size book, but it's not threatening at all. It's really awesome. But it's like JavaScript and jQuery. It's the same. I can't remember his name. Yes. Yes. That, in my opinion, is one of my favorite books. I've read that cover to cover like 4 or 5 times, and it's a great book to learn JavaScript and even with jQuery. And the cool thing about it, I'll actually learn JavaScript first before jQuery, so that I understood a lot of the principles jQuery brought to the table before I started getting into it. So it's just a really robust language to learn. I mean, it's not scary once you get into it. I think it's just, if you think of like PHP, but you want like WordPress, the idea of programming is similar to that, where it's, I mean, it's different syntax and a little bit different a little bit of a different understanding when it comes to it, and some different concepts, but it's, that idea of programming at its heart, at its core, is very similar to PHP. So.
Where are you personally with ES6?
Oh my gosh, I can't get enough of it.
Like adoption?
I cannot get enough of ES6. That's actually, so I wrote a React application, and if you guys know with Pokemon, I wrote a, yeah, I am a nerd at all heart. I essentially rewrote a Pokedex in React.js, and I used ES6 to write it. little bit complicated to get it set up. But once you get it set up, it's super powerful in my opinion. It's like, it blew my mind. And I don't think I want to write regular JavaScript anymore after this. So
We're using Babel.
that's my, yeah, that's the best thing. I use Babel and Go. My first preference. This is Go, is more readable. But yeah, that was, or even use Webpack, but that's really a game changer for me. Yeah, the new way to declare, you can declare classes, constants. So instead of like variables, you can let if you want to, but it's really powerful, really awesome. Love it.
Cool. Last call.
Question with the modular design pattern. With the modular design pattern, using the variable var, how does it affect global scoping of variables? Never remember.
So whenever you declare a variable, essentially, you especially out of a function, it's automatic as the global scope. So let's show it. Let's see. So technically, this hero function is actually automatic global scope. So what I didn't do here, what I usually do is I namespace my code. So this would actually be a very specific name that it would be something that very hard. It'd be very hard for any other project or any other code to actually replicate that particular name, since it's going to be asked the global scope. But everything inside of this function can only be accessed inside of it. So I actually can't access var public name unless I attach it to my hero variable. If that makes sense. So that's what we're about. I'm only actually assigning one variable to the global scope, and everything else is inside this local scope here.
And if you can't see, there's an anonymous function for that open parenthesis.
Yes.
So all the vars inside of it only get scopes to that function
Yes.
block.
And then I'm also, so right here, this open and close parentheses as well. It also, that's something that means you want to immediately call the function. I won't give you that exact acronym.
Immediately invoking.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't know if everyone knows, but that's exactly what it is. I mean, you can actually, so if this function, if my hero functions, or my hero variable, it took a parameter, it took things like jQuery, they want to pass it into it. I can essentially do, I can pass it here as a $, and as WordPress returns returns the jQuery variable itself. I can just pass that here, and this will actually be assigned to the $ variable throughout my module, and I can use that inside of it. So it's really cool. I mean, you can essentially you can create a function and call it immediately, so it's automatically available in your site and in your application.
Cool. One last round of applause.
And let's do announcements. So like I said before, this is WordPress DC. We meet every third Tuesday. The next one is the third Tuesday in March. It's the 15th. And yeah, we have our first WordCamp of the year coming up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I think 5 of the 9 co-organizers will be speaking. 4, 6. 6? Yeah, so a ton of us that co-organize will be speaking. This is on March 5th. I should really prep before I come up here and start battling, right? Yeah. It is the weekend of March 5th. So if you're interested in going and have any questions, feel free to tweet at us or bug us tonight. This will be the last meetup before that happens. All of us obviously really encourage it. We like speaking at it. A lot of us got our professional starts by going to WordCamps, by meeting people. We learn a lot of content. It's essentially a big meetup all weekend, maybe 20 or 30 talks available, and it's for everybody meeting people. Let's do people who are looking for work first. Actually, or is nobody looking for work? If you'd like to, if you're looking for work, and we'll pass around a microphone, you can make an introduction real quick. Cool. Thank you, Leland.
Hello, my name is Dwayne Strickland. In my normal day job, I do WordPress and Ruby on Rails, but I like to do a couple freelance projects a month. So if you need anyone doing WordPress front-end stuff, let me know.
Last call for anyone looking for work. Looking for work?
Hi, I'm Karen Fletcher. I am a longstanding art director, visual designer. I've been mucking about on the internet since 1997. I've been working with Drupal for the last 3 years. I just got my feet wet with WordPress last year. All tools are good tools. But I'm definitely looking for a creative position, and I do a pretty good job of impersonating a developer as needed. So I'm absolutely available and interested in talking to you if you are looking for someone who sounds like that.
Thanks. Looking for work? Anyone, if you wouldn't mind?
I am Aaron Baldwin. I run a company called TC. We built a CMS that integrates website, membership database, email management, event management, payment processing, all into one platform, and it's backed by WordPress. So we're looking for customers in the nonprofit or association space who are looking to either integrate data into one system or build a new website on WordPress and connect it to their constant contact email system or their net forum database. Spoke does it.
Cool. Last call for looking for work. Then we'll do people who are hiring.
My name is Russell Heinlein, like the maneuver. I work at a company called Automattic. We're always hiring and looking at our site now. We're looking for a JavaScript developer, a junior developer, and so we're here in that area. So if you're interested, come talk.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I work at Silverback Strategies. It's a search engine marketing firm. We like to outsource a couple of development projects, and we're also looking for a designer. So if you fit any of those, toss me a card.
So I said we're at 95. 95 is looking for a front-end developer as well as a Drupal developer. Both. That's awesome, and a love of WordPress always helps as well. So.
Hi, I work for the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health in DC, and for the last year or so I've been their WordPress person, but I've moved on to doing Ruby on Rails stuff. So if you're interested, it's a great job, great for a family-friendly type environment and all of that. Let me know.
Hey there, Dave, work for Automattic, automattic.com/jobs. We're almost always hiring happiness engineers, themers, developers, JavaScript engineers. Check it out. You can work from anywhere. Literally.
Hi, my name is Casey. I'm with Ironistic over in Alexandria. We are a web development agency. We are growing very quickly. We're looking for a bunch. I had Amelia, my marketer, pull up a list here. We're looking for a digital strategist / account manager, a front-end developer, a server technician, and a .NET developer. So we work mostly with WordPress, but we do also have support DNN, Drupal, and she really likes that one. So hit me up if you're looking for any of those things. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Wayne Taylor. I'm a tech director at Blue State Digital. I'm looking for sort of CMS developers, folks who can do the front-end work as well as the back-end CMS stuff. We work with Drupal, WordPress, Expression Engine, Craft, which different CMSs. So I'm looking for probably junior to mid-level folks. So if that's you, come to me.
And it's also worth mentioning that you can post a job position or looking for work on the forum section, the comments section of the Meetup site. And also it's always good to leave a trail in the comments of this particular event. So if people miss you during the meeting, they can come find you later. Any other chat? I got a bunch here.
Hi, I'm Gabe. I work for the Aspen Institute, which is just down the block. We have a bunch of affiliate policy programs that are always looking for new developers, and I'm desperately trying to get them to be WordPress people because I have people all the time coming up to us and our developer made us a custom site or a Drupal site and we don't know how to fix it. So if you would love to be part of our kind of corral of people, we also have great maintenance contracts where you get paid to kind of just hang out and wait for something to break. Honestly, it's not that bad. So would love to get some business cards, so I have people around who are actually competent.
I usually have job asks. This time it's more of a favor ask. February 27th is Pokemon Day. I know, how is this related? I was hoping that this is the kind of audience where somebody is into Pokemon. If you love Pokemon and you're possibly interested in Asian art, I work for the Freer and Sacra Galleries. We're looking for people who can help us pro bono match up any of the creatures in our collection with real Pokemon before Pokemon Day. That's it, thanks.
Well, talk to Courtney. I will first, actually. I'll make an announcement for Chief. We're always hiring. That's the location that you're in now. A lot of the positions are on site, but we also have some government contractors too that you might be off site. Specifically looking for a Drupal developer now. And we're also looking for a new position, a technical content strategist that will help us shift some migration problems that we've been having. Any other people looking to hire? Did I miss anybody? Okay. 2 more quick announcements. Well, at least I thought there was 2 more quick announcements. I have one for sure. The WordPress.org group, society, I don't know, the big open source project. They're trying to do this thing every 4th Saturday or 4th weekend of the month where people can contribute for the first time, a contributors weekend. Last month in January, it was for the support forums. And there was a goal for 20 questions to be answered. WordPress DC held our first event here, and we had one attendee, and he tried his best. He didn't get very far. He got 10 answered, kind of. No, you're too kind. But we would like to do more of these, at least I would. And anybody that's interested is welcome to participate. I'm expecting at tops we'll ever get 5 people. I mean, because you're coming in on a weekend and you're looking to work for free, and particularly open source forums, that's a lot of fun. So this next month, the last weekend in February, will be for WordPress TV, and I don't have the specific details yet, but it'll be help you do. Perfect.
Okay, the contributor days are moving from team to team. So if you look at WordPress.org, there are contributor teams. There's 12, 13 of them at this point. 1 a month, I guess, is what we're doing. And this month is WordPress TV. WordPress TV, if you haven't been there, go to WordPress.tv. There are videos and videos and videos from WordCamps all over the world for many, many years. You can get lost on there forever and learn a lot. This particular contributor day is going to be focused on cutting in slides to existing videos to make the slides easier for people to see. And I suspect there will also be some captioning. So typing the words that go with the audio so that people can either read the words if they need to or translate the words into other languages and make it more accessible for everybody. So.
Intro real quick. Just hi.
Oh, I'm Beth. Hi.
She co-leads the training.
I co-lead the WordPress training team, and I help organize the meetup too.
Cool.
And remember, my second thing is that we're always looking for speakers. Always. Sometimes a day, a week ahead of time, we're really prepared. So if you're interested in the slightest, talk to us. If you know anybody that's interested in the slightest, talk to us. This is a really great format to come up and get your starts and just give it a shot. We can help give you advice and give you feedback and everything that you'll need for that. So, cool. Any other related announcements before we call it quits? We got lots of time, people. We try to get out of here by 10 to 9 or so. So go ahead and feel free to mingle. I think we got food left over and plenty of drinks. So thank you for coming. We'll see you next month.
Like fake data.